The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council stretched toward infinity, catching starlight from 3 suns and scattering it into rainbow patterns across the marble floor. Ambassador Park Min-ho walked slowly through those halls, his shoes clicking against the stone with each deliberate step. Behind him, Captain Choi Yuna followed in silence, her military uniform crisp and perfect. She carried a data pad, but her eyes were always moving, always watching. They had come here with hope. Earth had spent 40 years as a junior member of the Galactic Council, always nodding, always agreeing, always taking the smallest share of everything. Mining rights in distant systems went to species with bigger fleets. Trade routes favored those with more political power. Humanity got the scraps, and they had accepted it with patience that surprised even themselves. But today was different. Today, Earth was going to ask for equality. The council chamber was massive. 847 species sent representatives here, and the room accommodated them all. Some delegates floated in tanks of liquid methane. Others perched on crystalline spires. The insectoid Vrexians occupied an entire section with their hive-mind collective. At the center of it all, on a raised platform that looked down on everyone else, sat Premier Vexthar. Vexthar was 12 feet tall when he stood, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming black and green. His mandibles clicked together as he spoke, and his voice boomed through translation devices that hung in the air like floating orbs. He was old, powerful, and he had led the council for 30 years. Park Min-ho took his place in the small booth assigned to Earth. It was near the back, wedged between 2 larger delegations. Choi Yuna stood behind him, her hand resting casually near her sidearm. Not that weapons mattered here. This was a place of words, not war. The session began with routine matters. Trade disputes between the Kelmar and the Vuxies. Mining rights near the Horsehead Nebula. Expansion permits for 3 different species wanting to colonize new systems. Everything was discussed, voted upon, and decided with the mechanical efficiency of a government that had been doing this for centuries. Then came Earth's petition. Park Min-ho stood when his turn came. He activated his booth's holographic display, showing Earth's request in simple terms. Humanity wanted equal access to the resource allocation treaties. They wanted the same mining rights as other spacefaring species. They wanted permission to expand beyond their current 3 colonies. Nothing unreasonable. Nothing aggressive. Just equality. The chamber fell silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then Premier Vexthar started laughing. It was a horrible sound, like rocks grinding together in a metal drum. His mandibles clattered with amusement. The humans want equality? Vexthar's voice carried across the chamber. The species that only achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago wants the same rights as civilizations that have sailed the stars for millennia? Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not polite chuckles. Real mocking laughter. Ambassador Quinla slithered forward in her booth. She was a Serpinian, her body a long coil of blue-scaled muscle, her eyes cold and calculating. This is absurd, Premier. Humanity controls 1 star system. 1. They have 3 colonies, all of them barely sustainable. They possess 12 warships, if we're being generous with the term warship. And they dare to ask for equal status. More laughter. A delegate from the Korthaxi barked something that the translator rendered as adorable presumption. Park Min-ho stood perfectly still. His face showed nothing. No anger, no embarrassment. Behind him, Choi Yuna's fingers twitched slightly, but she maintained her composure. Vexthar leaned forward on his platform. Let me be clear, Ambassador Park. Earth is a curiosity. You are primates who learned to use tools, then somehow stumbled into space. You are children playing with technology you barely understand. The Council allows you membership as a courtesy, not because you have earned it. We have followed every rule, Park Min-ho said quietly. We have met every obligation. Yes, Vexthar waved a clawed hand dismissively. You are obedient. That is admirable in pets, but obedience does not grant you the right to sit at the table as equals. Quinla's forked tongue flickered. If anything, Premier, I propose we should limit human expansion further. They are already consuming resources that could go to more deserving species. I move to reduce Earth's mining rights by 60%. The chamber buzzed with approval. Several delegates voiced their support immediately. Park Min-ho finally spoke, his voice cutting through the noise. We came here in good faith. And we appreciate that, Vexthar said, his tone dripping with false sincerity. But good faith does not change reality. You are weak. You are insignificant. In the grand span of galactic civilization, humanity is a footnote. Perhaps in another 1,000 years you might be worthy of consideration. But not today. The vote proceeded quickly. Earth's petition for equal rights was rejected by a margin of 847 to 1. The single vote in favor was Earth's own. Then Quinla's motion passed with overwhelming support. Earth's mining rights were cut by 60%, effective immediately. Park Min-ho stood silently as the votes were tallied. Choi Yuna leaned close and whispered, "Sir, we should—" "Wait," Park Min-ho said softly. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small recording device. He held it up so Vexithar could see it clearly, then pressed a button. A red light blinked off. "Ambassador Park Min-ho of Earth wishes to make a formal statement," he said, his voice carrying through the chamber with unexpected force. The laughter died down. Vexithar gestured with bored amusement. "Speak then. Give us your pitiful protest." Park Min-ho looked directly at the Premier. Then he looked at Quinla. Then he let his gaze sweep across the entire chamber, meeting the eyes or optical sensors or whatever served for eyes among the gathered species. Humanity withdraws from all treaties with the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We are done with this council. We are done with your rules. And we are done with your disrespect. The chamber erupted, not with laughter this time, but with shocked exclamations. Vexthar's mandibles clacked together sharply. "You cannot simply withdraw. There are procedures. There are protocols. We followed your protocols," Park Min-ho said coldly. "We asked politely. We were humiliated for it. Now we choose a different path." He turned to Choi Yuna. "Captain, we're leaving." As they walked toward the exit, Quinla's voice hissed after them. "You are making a terrible mistake, humans. Without council protection, you will be vulnerable. You will be alone." Park Min-ho stopped at the doorway. He didn't turn around, but his voice carried across the entire chamber. "We'll take our chances." Behind them, as the doors sealed shut, the council erupted into fresh laughter. They thought it was funny. They thought humanity was throwing a tantrum, making an empty gesture that would be forgotten in a week when Earth came crawling back, desperate for readmission. They were wrong. In the human delegation's ship, Choi Yuna secured the doors and activated the privacy shields. "Orders, sir?" Park Min-ho pulled out a secure communicator. "Send the signal to Earth. Tell them the council has made their position clear." He paused, and for the first time a cold smile crossed his face. "Tell Admiral Lee to begin the countdown." "The countdown, sir?" Choi Yuna asked, though she already knew the answer. 12 hours, Park Min-ho said. "In 12 hours, the Galactic Council is going to learn what humanity really is." The message reached Earth 6 hours before Park Min-ho's ship did. It traveled through quantum communication channels that the Galactic Council didn't know humanity possessed. The signal arrived at a facility buried 3 miles beneath the Swiss Alps, in a complex that officially didn't exist. Director Kim Sora read the message 3 times. Then she stood from her desk, straightened her jacket, and walked down a corridor that stretched for half a mile. At the end of that corridor was a door with no handle, no keypad, no visible security. She simply stood before it, and after a moment it opened. Inside, Admiral Lee Taeyang was already waiting. He was a mountain of a man, his shoulders broad and his face lined with the kind of scars you only got from real combat. He'd fought in the border wars 20 years ago, back when humanity was still learning how to survive in a hostile galaxy. Now he commanded something far more impressive than a few patrol ships. "The council rejected us," Kim Sora said. "It wasn't a question." "They did more than reject us," Lee Taeyang replied. He pulled up a holographic display showing the recording Park Min-ho had made. They watched in silence as Premier Vexthar mocked humanity, as Quinla called them insignificant, as the entire council laughed. When it finished, Kim Sora's expression was ice. "Good. That makes this easier." She activated her own communicator. "Dr. Han, please report to Command Alpha. Authorization Prometheus." 10 minutes later, Dr. Han Jiwoo entered the room. She was younger than the other two, barely 40, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who held terrible secrets. Her specialty was weapons development, though her official title was Advanced Physics Research. Director, Admiral. She nodded to each of them. "I assume this is about the council situation?" "It is," Kim Sora said. "The Admiral and I agree. It's time," Han Jiwoo smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Finally. I've been waiting for this for 15 years. She pulled up her own set of holographic displays. What appeared in the air between them would have shocked the Galactic Council into stunned silence. "Let me give you the summary," Han Jiwoo said. 43 years ago, when we first made contact with the Council, we made a decision. We decided to appear weak. We decided to let them think we were primitive. And while they laughed at us, we studied them. The holograms showed ships. Thousands of ships. Sleek, deadly, and completely unlike the clunky vessels humanity publicly claimed to possess. "We have 2,347 warships," Han Jiwoo continued. "They're hidden across the solar system. Some in the asteroid belt, some in the Oort cloud, some on the dark side of Saturn's moons. The Council thinks we have 12 ships. They're wrong by a factor of almost 200. Admiral Lee Taeyang stepped forward, pointing at specific vessels. "These are the Phantom-class destroyers. They use stealth technology adapted from studying Vrexian hive communication. The Council's sensors can't detect them. These are the Hammer-class dreadnoughts. They carry fusion antimatter hybrid weapons that can crack a planet's crust. And these," he gestured to a group of smaller, faster ships, "are the Reaper-class fighters. Piloted by AI-augmented humans, response time measured in microseconds." Kim Sora added her own information. "Our FTL drives are 3 generations ahead of Council standard. We can travel twice as far in half the time. We've also weaponized quantum entanglement. We can disable enemy shields from light years away if we have the right frequency." "How?" Han Jiwoo asked rhetorically. "Because while the Council was busy feeling superior, we were stealing every piece of technology we could find. Every time a Council ship docked at one of our stations, we scanned it. Every time they shared safe technology with us, we reverse-engineered it and improved it. Every treaty they forced us to sign, we used as an opportunity to learn more about them." She pulled up star maps showing the entire Council territory. Red dots marked key locations, military bases, trade hubs, research facilities. There were hundreds of them. "We know where everything is," Kim Sora said quietly. "We've had intelligence agents working undercover for decades. Some of them are in high-ranking Council positions. They've been feeding us information the whole time." Admiral Lee Taeyang crossed his arms. "The Council's military is spread thin right now. They have peacekeeping operations in 40 different systems. Their main battle fleets are scattered. Their defenses are weak. If we strike now, we can hit them before they can react." "What's the objective?" Han Jiwoo asked, though she already knew. "We're going to take back everything they took from us," Kim Sora said. "Mining rights, territory, respect, and we're going to make sure they never underestimate us. Again." She activated a communication channel that connected to every human military installation in the solar system. "This is Director Kim Sora. Authorization code Prometheus 77 Alpha. Operation Reckoning is now active. All forces to battle stations. Countdown begins in 1 hour." Across the solar system, humanity began to wake up. Hidden shipyards roared to life. Orbital defense platforms activated weapon systems that had been dormant for years. Soldiers who had trained in secret for their entire careers received their deployment orders. Engineers checked and rechecked systems that the galaxy had never seen in action. On Mars, in a facility buried beneath Olympus Mons, Commander Kwon Ji-hoon read his orders and smiled. He was a special operations officer, trained for missions that most people would consider impossible. His team of 200 commandos had one job: capture Council research facilities intact. They wanted the technology, the data, everything, and they would take it. On the moon Europa, Fleet Captain Bei Minji prepared her squadron of stealth cruisers. They would be the first wave, hitting Council military stations before anyone knew what was happening. Her orders were specific: destroy weapons, disable ships, but minimize casualties. This wasn't about genocide. This was about sending a message. Back on Earth, in the command center, Kim Sora watched as the countdown ticked away. Beside her, Admiral Lee Taeyang reviewed final attack plans. Dr. Han Jiwoo monitored weapon systems, making sure everything was ready. "Do you think they'll surrender quickly?" Han Jiwoo asked. "No," Kim Sora said. "They're too proud. They'll fight at first, then they'll realize they can't win. Then they'll try to negotiate, and that's when we'll show them what real power looks like." Park Min-ho's ship arrived at Earth 30 minutes before the operation launched. He went directly to the command center, still wearing the same suit he'd worn to the Council. Choi Yuna accompanied him, her datapad now loaded with tactical information. Ambassador, Kim Sora greeted him. How do you feel? Park Min-ho looked at the holographic displays showing the entire human fleet preparing to launch. He thought about Vexithar's laughter. He thought about Quinla's contempt. He thought about 40 years of insults, of being treated like children, of watching human colonies struggle because the Council deliberately limited their resources. I feel ready, he said simply. Admiral Lee Tai-yang checked his chronometer. 5 minutes to launch. Ambassador, would you like to send the message? Park Min-ho nodded. He stepped up to the communication console and opened a channel that would broadcast to every Council world simultaneously. When he spoke, his voice was calm, clear, and absolutely cold. This is Ambassador Park Min-ho of Earth. 40 years ago, we joined your council with hope. We believed in cooperation. We believed in peace. We followed your rules, accepted your insults, and waited patiently for you to recognize us as equals. Today, you made your position clear. You told us we are insignificant. You told us we are weak. You told us we don't deserve respect. He paused, letting the silence stretch. You were wrong. In approximately 2 minutes, you will learn exactly how wrong you were. We gave you a chance for peace. You chose mockery instead. Now you will learn what humanity really is. This is your only warning. We are coming, and we are not asking for permission anymore. The transmission ended. Admiral Lee Tai-yang raised his hand. All ships, this is command. Operation Reckoning is now active. Execute on my mark. He looked at the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Across the solar system, 2,347 warships activated their drives and vanished into faster-than-light space. They were heading to 40 different systems simultaneously, hitting targets the Council didn't even know were vulnerable. The Galactic Council had laughed at humanity. In 12 hours, they would stop laughing. The first strike hit the Kelmar system at exactly 300 local time. The Council military station there was old, built during the expansion wars 3 centuries ago. It had thick armor and powerful shields, and it housed 600 soldiers from a dozen different species. The commanders there felt safe. They had never been attacked. Nobody was stupid enough to attack a Council military installation. Then Captain Choi Yuna's task force dropped out of FTL space. There were 20 ships in her group. They appeared simultaneously, their stealth systems making them invisible to the station's sensors for almost 30 seconds. That was enough time. The human ships moved into position with mechanical precision, surrounding the station completely. When the station's sensors finally detected them, the alarm went off immediately. Commander Thelvar, a 4-armed Korthaxi veteran, rushed to the command center. Unidentified ships. Power up weapons and shields. The shields came online. The weapons began charging. But before they could fire, something strange happened. Every computer system on the station started glitching. Screens flickered. Targeting systems went offline. The shield generators began powering down despite all attempts to keep them active. What's happening? Thelvar shouted. His communications officer looked up in panic. Sir, they're broadcasting some kind of quantum disruption signal. It's shutting down our systems. Override it. I'm trying. Nothing's working. Then a voice came through the station's speakers. It was calm, professional, and human. This is Captain Choi Yuna of the United Earth Defense Force. Your weapons are disabled. Your shields are down. Your communication systems are under our control. You have 2 options. Option 1, evacuate to your escape pods immediately. We will not fire on evacuation craft. Option 2, stay on the station and we will board it by force. You have 60 seconds to decide. Thelvar stared at the screens in disbelief. 20 human ships surrounded his station. 20 ships that shouldn't exist. His sensors were now showing their true capabilities. And what he saw made his blood run cold. These weren't the primitive vessels the Council had mocked. These were warships that could tear his station apart. Evacuate, he said quietly. Then louder, all personnel evacuate immediately. Across the station, 600 soldiers scrambled for escape pods. They launched in waves, small craft shooting away from the station in all directions. True to her word, Choi Yuna's ships didn't fire on them. They simply watched as the station emptied. When the last escape pod cleared the danger zone, Choi Yuna gave the order. Target the station's reactor. Precision strike. I want it disabled, not destroyed. A single beam of concentrated energy lanced out from the late human ship. It punched through the station's armor like paper and struck the reactor core with surgical precision. The reactor shut down instantly. The station went dark, floating dead in space. "Boarding teams, move in," Choi Yuna said. Human Marines in powered armor stormed the empty station. They moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, securing every section. They downloaded every database, copied every file, and took inventory of every weapon. The entire operation took 14 minutes. When they were done, Choi Yuna broadcast a message to the escaped council soldiers. "Your station is now under human control. Your personnel are safe. Consider this a lesson. Earth is not weak. We are not children, and we are done being disrespected." The same scenario played out across 40 different systems. At the Vrexian research facility on Kortha Prime, Commander Kwon Ji-hoon's special operations team materialized directly inside the main laboratory. Using experimental teleportation technology, the Vrexian scientists barely had time to register surprise before they were surrounded by human commandos in full combat gear. "Nobody moves." Kwon Ji-hoon's voice boomed through his helmet speakers. "This facility is now under human control. Cooperate and you'll be released unharmed. Resist and you'll be sedated. Your choice." The lead Vrexian scientist, a creature named Zelmoth, raised all 6 of his arms in surrender. "What do you want?" "Everything," Kwon Ji-hoon said simply. "Your research, your data, your experimental technology, all of it." His team moved through the facility like ghosts, copying terabytes of information in minutes. They found weapons research that the Council had kept secret, advanced shield technology, genetic modification programs, things that proved the Council was far more militaristic than they claimed. At the trade station Nexus 7, human ships simply appeared and took control. The station master, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Qualis, tried to contact Council security forces. But his communications were jammed. Human soldiers walked through his station politely but firmly, directing all non-military personnel to shelter areas. They took control of the docking bays, the warehouses, the security centers. Within an hour, the largest trade hub in the sector belonged to Earth. Back on Kestera Prime, Premier Vexthar was awakened by his aide in the middle of the night. The aide was trembling. "Premier, we have reports coming in." "Multiple reports, from 40 different systems." Vexthar's mandibles clicked irritably. "What kind of reports?" "Attacks, sir. Human attacks. They're hitting our military stations. They're taking over trade hubs. They're raiding our research facilities. It's happening everywhere at once." Vexthar went very still. "That's impossible. The humans have 12 ships. They can't attack 40 systems simultaneously. They're not using 12 ships, sir." The aide pulled up holographic displays showing the attacks. "They're using hundreds, maybe thousands, and they're winning. Every single engagement we're losing." The Premier watched the displays in growing horror. He saw the Kelmar station go dark. He saw human commandos inside the Vrexian facility. He saw trade stations surrendering without a fight. It was a nightmare. "Where did they get these ships?" he whispered. "We don't know, sir. Intelligence is reporting that human technology is far more advanced than we believed. Their stealth systems, their weapons, their FTL drives, everything is superior to our own." Ambassador Quinla slithered into the room, her scales pale with shock. "This is a disaster. We need to respond. Call up the defense fleets." "Our defense fleets are scattered," Vexthar said numbly. "We have peacekeeping operations in 60 systems. We can't pull them back in time. Even if we could, based on these reports, the humans would destroy them. Then we negotiate." Quinla hissed. "With what leverage?" Vexthar demanded. "They're winning. They're taking everything they want and we can't stop them." On the flagship of the human fleet, Admiral Li Taeyang monitored the operations with satisfaction. Every target had been hit. Every objective had been achieved. And most importantly, casualties were minimal. Some Council soldiers had refused to evacuate and were stunned with non-lethal weapons. A few ships had tried to fight and were disabled without being destroyed. But no mass casualties, no war crimes, just overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple communication requests from Council worlds," his communications officer reported. "They're asking us to cease hostilities. They're requesting negotiations." "Tell them negotiations will occur when we decide they're ready," Li Taeyang said. "Continue operations as planned." The next phase began. Human ships established blockades around 12 key Council worlds. not attacking them, not even threatening them, just sitting there controlling who entered and who left. Trade stopped, supplies stopped moving. Economies began grinding to a halt. On each of these worlds, panic spread. The Council had always been the dominant power. They had never faced a real threat. Now humanity, the species they had mocked just hours ago, was strangling their economies without firing a shot at civilian targets. Captain Choi Yuna positioned her fleet around the Council military stronghold at Kelmar. It was supposed to be impenetrable. Massive defense platforms, 3 capital ships in permanent orbit, shields that could withstand sustained bombardment for weeks. She tested those shields with a single shot. The beam punched through like the shields weren't even there. The Council defenders stopped shooting immediately and requested terms of surrender. "Stand down your weapons," Choi Yuna transmitted. "Evacuate your military personnel to the surface. You have 6 hours." They complied. Across the galaxy, the Council's military infrastructure was being systematically dismantled. Not destroyed, that would have been wasteful. Captured, studied, repurposed. Humanity was taking everything the Council had denied them for 40 years, and they were doing it so efficiently that resistance seemed pointless. In the Council chambers, Premier Vexthar sat in darkness. His mandibles hung loose. His compound eyes were dim. Around him, the emergency session was chaos. Delegates shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for surrender. A few species were already trying to negotiate separate peace treaties with Earth. Ambassador Quinla's voice cut through the noise. "This is treason. Those species seeking separate peace are betraying the Council." "The Council betrayed them first," said a quiet voice. It was Ambassador Melkora of the Therian species, a people who had been oppressed by the Council for generations. "We all knew the Council was corrupt. We all knew some species were treated better than others. The humans are simply doing what we were too afraid to do." "Traitor," Quinla spat. "Perhaps," Melkora replied. "Or perhaps I'm just honest enough to admit the truth. We built our power on mockery and oppression. Now someone stronger has come along. We're getting exactly what we deserve." The 3rd day of the human offensive began with silence. No new attacks, no fresh invasions. The human fleet simply held their positions around the 12 blockaded Council worlds, like predators watching wounded prey. Inside Earth's command center, Director Kim Sora prepared for the next phase of the operation. This one wouldn't involve weapons. "Begin the broadcasts," she said quietly. Across every Council world, every communication network, every public display system, a message appeared. It bypassed all security protocols, overrode all attempts to block it, and played on infinite loop. The message began with a simple title, 40 Years of Truth. What followed was damning. The recording showed Council sessions where human petitions were mocked. It showed Ambassador Quinla laughing about sabotaging human colony ships. It showed Premier Vexthar privately calling humans useful idiots who could be manipulated easily. It showed secret agreements where Council species divided up resources that should have gone to smaller civilizations. Most devastating of all, it showed proof that the Council had deliberately prevented humans from accessing medical technology that could have saved 15,000 lives during the colony plague 5 years ago. The footage was clear. The evidence was undeniable, and it played everywhere. On Vrexia Prime, the homeworld of Premier Vexthar's species, citizens watched in horror as their leader's true nature was revealed. On Serpinia, Quinla's own people saw her laughing about deaths she had caused. On dozens of worlds, populations that had trusted the Council leadership began to riot. Ambassador Nam Hyeji stood before a recording device in Earth's main communications center. She was younger than Park Min-ho, only 35, with sharp eyes and an even sharper tongue. She had been chosen for this moment because she didn't care about diplomacy anymore. She cared about truth. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice steady and clear. "For 40 years, humanity has been part of the Galactic Council. We joined with hope. We believed in cooperation and peace. We followed every rule, signed every treaty, and accepted every limitation placed upon us. And in return, we were mocked. We were sabotaged. We were deliberately kept weak while our people died from preventable diseases." She gestured, and behind her, holographic images showed the evidence. Colony ships that mysteriously malfunctioned, medical supplies that never arrived, human trade vessels harassed by Council forces who claimed it was routine inspections. The Council calls itself civilized. It claims to represent justice and equality. But the evidence speaks for itself. The Council is built on corruption. It maintains power by oppressing smaller species. It rewards cruelty and punishes weakness. And when we asked politely for equality, they laughed at us. Nam Hyeji's expression hardened. So we stopped asking. We took what should have been ours from the beginning. And now the Council cries about aggression. They claim we're the villains. But ask yourselves, who killed 15,000 colonists by withholding medicine? Who sabotaged civilian ships? Who built a system where some species matter and others don't? She paused, letting the questions hang in the air. We are not the villains of this story. We are simply the first species strong enough to fight back. And we will not stop until every species in this galaxy has the same rights, the same opportunities, and the same respect. The broadcast ended, but its impact was just beginning. On the Council world of Brentar, a species called the feline had lived under harsh restrictions for decades. They were limited to 3 colony worlds. Their trade was heavily taxed. Their voices in council sessions were ignored. Within hours of seeing Nam Hyeji's broadcast, they declared independence from the Council and requested Earth's protection. The Therians followed, then the Melkari, then species nobody had even heard of because they had been so thoroughly suppressed. One by one, over 200 smaller species broke away from Council control. Some asked for Earth's help. Others simply declared that they would govern themselves. The Council's authority crumbled like sandstone in a storm. Premier Vexthar watched his empire fall apart from his chamber on Castera Prime. He had ruled for 30 years. He had believed the Council was eternal, unshakable. Now it was dying, and it had taken only 72 hours. We need to respond, Quinla insisted. She had come to his chamber, desperate and afraid. We need to attack Earth directly, show them we're still strong. With what? Vexthar asked bitterly. Our fleets are scattered. The few ships we have are no match for human technology. If we attack Earth, we'll lose everything. Then we surrender? I don't know. Vexithar's mandibles clicked weakly. I genuinely don't know what to do. That's when the Council military made its decision without asking permission. Fleet Commander, Garvosh, a proud warrior from the Korthaxi species, gathered what remained of the Council's military strength. He had 40 capital ships, 100 cruisers, and 300 smaller vessels. It was the largest force the Council could assemble on short notice. He pointed them all at one target, Earth's moon base, Luna Station. If we take their moon, we take their home system, Garvosh announced to his fleet. Then we can negotiate from a position of strength. For the Council, for our honor. His fleet jumped to FTL space, heading straight for Earth's solar system. They arrived 12 hours later, confident and ready for battle. Luna Station sat in orbit around Earth's moon, a small facility that could house maybe 5,000 personnel. It looked vulnerable. Then Fleet Admiral Bay Minji's defense force appeared. They came from nowhere. One moment, space around Luna Station was empty. The next, there were 500 human warships in perfect formation. They had been waiting, hidden by stealth systems for exactly this kind of stupid move. Council Fleet, this is Admiral Bay Minji. You have entered Earth's home system with hostile intent. Power down your weapons immediately or you will be destroyed. Garvosh laughed. You're outnumbered. We have... He paused as his sensors updated. His expression changed from confidence to horror. That's impossible. You have 30 seconds, Bai Minji said coldly. Garvosh, to his credit, was a warrior. He refused to surrender. All ships, attack formation, fire at will. The Council fleet opened fire. Thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously, filling space with energy beams and missiles. It was an impressive display of firepower. It was also completely ineffective. The human shields absorbed the attack without even flickering. Then the human fleet returned fire, but they didn't use their main weapons. They used point defense systems, the weapons meant for shooting down missiles. Even those were enough. Council ships began exploding. Shields collapsed under sustained fire. Armor melted. Within 10 minutes, Garvosh had lost 40% of his fleet. He tried to retreat, but human ships were faster. They caught the fleeing council vessels easily, disabled their engines, and left them drifting in space. Council fleet, your attack has failed, Minji announced. Your remaining ships will be tractored to Luna Station, where your crews will be taken as prisoners of war. You came here seeking battle. You found a slaughter. Let this be your lesson. Humanity's patience has limits, and you crossed them. Back on Kastera Prime, Premier Vexthar received the report of the disaster. 40% of the Council's remaining military strength destroyed in 10 minutes. It was over. The Council had lost. Not just battles. Everything. Their authority, their military, their reputation. All of it gone. Quinla slithered into his chamber one last time. We must negotiate. We must offer them something. They don't want something, Vexthar said quietly. They want everything, and they're strong enough to take it. In Earth's command center, Director Kim Sora watched reports flow in. The council was broken. 200 species had declared independence. The military had been decimated. And most importantly, the truth about council corruption was now public knowledge that couldn't be suppressed. We haven't even deployed the main battle fleet yet, Admiral Li Taeyang noted. Everything we've done has been with our secondary forces. Kim Sora nodded. I know. Let them think about that. Let them realize they never stood a chance. Park Minho entered the command center, flanked by Nam Hyeji. Director, we're receiving formal requests for negotiation from 73 council species. They want to discuss terms. Good, Kim Sora said. But we negotiate on our terms, at our location. Send a message to Premier Vexthar. Tell him if he wants to talk, he comes to Kastera Prime. We'll be waiting in the council chambers. Park Minho smiled. The same place where they humiliated us. Exactly, Kim Sora replied. They need to understand how completely the situation has changed. They laughed at us in those chambers. Now they'll beg for mercy in them. The council chambers looked different now. Human soldiers stood at every entrance, their armor gleaming under the crystalline lights. The raised platform where Premier Vexthar had once sat in judgment now held a simple table with chairs arranged in a circle. No throne, no elevated position, just equality. Ambassador Park Minho walked through those halls again just as he had a week ago. But this time, nobody laughed. The delegates who remained, and there weren't many, watched him with fear, respect, and in some cases, gratitude. Behind him, Captain Choi Yuna walked in full-dress uniform, no longer just an observer but a symbol of the power that had brought the council to its knees. Premier Vexithar was already there, waiting. He looked smaller somehow, his chitinous exoskeleton dull and his movements slow. Ambassador Quinla coiled beside him, her scales faded and her eyes avoiding contact. Around the room, representatives from the surviving council species sat in silence. They knew what was coming. Park Minho took his seat at the table. Not in the back where Earth's booth had been. At the center, where he belonged. Thank you for coming, Park Minho said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. I know this isn't easy for you. A week ago, you sat where I sit now, secure in your power. You mocked humanity. You called us insignificant. You laughed at our request for equality. Vexthar's mandibles clicked weakly. Ambassador Park, I'm not finished, Park Minho interrupted quietly. The premier fell silent immediately. You laughed, and in doing so, you made a critical mistake. You assumed that because we were patient, we were weak. You assumed that because we followed your rules, we had no choice. You were wrong. Admiral Li Taeyang entered the chamber, flanked by Director Kim Sora and Dr. Han Jiwoo. They took positions around the table, each representing a different aspect of Earth's power: military, intelligence, technology. Let me make the situation clear, Kim Sora said. In the past week, we have captured or destroyed 60% of Council military installations. We have taken control of major trade routes. We have liberated 200 species from Council oppression, and we have done all of this using less than half of our available forces. The main human battle fleet hasn't left the solar system. We haven't needed it. A murmur of shock rippled through the remaining Council delegates. Even after everything, they hadn't realized humanity was still holding back. Dr. Han Jiwoo pulled up holographic displays. Your technology is generations behind ours. Your weapons are inferior. Your ships are slower. Your tactics are predictable. The only reason this conflict lasted a week is because we chose to minimize casualties. If we had wanted to destroy you, it would have taken 72 hours. Quinella finally spoke, her voice a desperate hiss. What do you want? Reparations? Territory? Name your price. Price? Park Min-ho's expression hardened. You think this is about price? You killed 15,000 of our colonists by withholding medicine. You sabotaged our ships. You systematically oppressed not just us, but hundreds of species across this galaxy. And you think we want payment? He stood, walking slowly around the table. What we want is simple. We want a galaxy where every species has equal rights, where trade is fair, where small civilizations aren't crushed by large ones, where power is shared, not hoarded, where nobody is mocked for asking to be treated with respect. That's impossible, Vexthar said weakly. You can't restructure the entire galactic order. We already have, Admiral Li Taeyang replied. While you were trying to hold on to power, we built something new. We call it the Galactic Federation. It has 347 member species so far, all equal, all with the same rights, all with one vote each. He pulled up a document. These are the founding principles. All species receive equal representation. No species holds veto power. Technology is shared freely. Military forces are defensive only, commanded by rotating councils from multiple species. Trade is open and regulated fairly. And most importantly, any species that commits genocide, sabotage, or systematic oppression against another species is expelled and sanctioned until they reform. Ambassador Nam Hyeji stepped forward. The species here have a choice. You can join the Federation under these terms. You will be equal members, with all the same rights and responsibilities as everyone else. Or you can refuse and you will be isolated. No trade, no technology sharing, no military protection. You'll be on your own. This is extortion, Quinella hissed. No, Park Min-ho said coldly. Extortion is what you did to us for 40 years. This is justice. This is the price of your cruelty. You built a system based on oppression, and that system is gone. Now you live in a galaxy where strength comes with responsibility. One by one, Council species began to accept. The Therians were first, their representative standing with tears in his eyes. On behalf of my people, we join the Federation. Finally, we are free. The Melkari followed, then the feline, then dozens of others. Species that had suffered under Council rule practically ran to join the new Federation. Within an hour, 300 species had signed the charter, but not everyone accepted. Premier Vexthar stood slowly. I will not sign. The Vrexian people will not bow to human demands. We are a proud species. We will not. Then you are expelled, Park Min-ho said simply. The Vrexian species is hereby banned from all Federation trade, all technology sharing, and all diplomatic contact until such time as your government is replaced with one that respects basic decency. Vexthar's mandibles clattered in rage. You cannot do this. We are a powerful species. You have nothing, Admiral Li Taeyang interrupted. Your military is destroyed. Your economy is collapsing. Your own people are rioting in the streets because they've seen what you really are. You're done, Vexthar. Go home and pray your own citizens don't tear you down before we decide to intervene. Vexthar looked around the room, desperate for support. But nobody met his eyes. He had ruled through fear and mockery for 30 years, and now that fear had turned against him. He left the chamber in silence, his footsteps echoing in the empty halls. Ambassador Quinella remained, her scales pale. What about me? You, Kim Sora said, her voice like ice, are being charged with war crimes. You admitted on record to sabotaging colony ships, resulting in deaths. You deliberately withheld medical supplies. You are responsible for the deaths of thousands. You will be tried in a Federation court, and if found guilty, you will spend the rest of your life in prison. 2 human Marines stepped forward. Quinla looked like she wanted to resist, but one glance at their weapons made her reconsider. She was led away in silence. The chamber was quiet now. Only the new Federation members remained, along with Earth's representatives. Ambassador Osulgi, spokesperson for the smaller species that had been liberated, stood and addressed the room. For centuries, we lived under council oppression. We were told we were inferior. We were denied basic rights. We watched as our people suffered while the council grew fat on stolen resources. We tried to resist, but we were too weak, too scattered, too afraid. She looked at Park Minho. Then humanity showed us something we had forgotten. That power without justice is tyranny. That strength means nothing if it's not used to protect the weak. That sometimes the only way to achieve peace is to be willing to fight for it. She bowed deeply. On behalf of 236 species, thank you. Thank you for having the courage to do what we could not. Park Minho nodded. We didn't do this for gratitude. We did it because it was necessary. Because we were tired of being treated as less than we are. Because we believe every species deserves respect. He looked around the room. But let me be clear. The Federation is not human-dominated. We are one species among many. We have one vote just like everyone else. What we offer is protection, technology, and fair treatment. What we ask in return is that you extend the same fairness to others. This is not a human empire. This is a true federation. And it will only work if all of us commit to equality. Over the next 3 days, the Federation Charter was finalized. Earth provided military protection and advanced technology. Other species contributed resources, knowledge, and cultural exchange. The old council's corrupt systems were dismantled and replaced with transparent governance. Courts were established to handle disputes fairly. Trade networks were restructured to benefit everyone, not just the powerful. 5 years later, Park Minho stood in the same council chambers, now called Federation Hall, and looked out at a transformed galaxy. Over 700 species had joined the Federation. The Vrexian government had collapsed and reformed, eventually joining as an equal member after implementing democratic reforms. Even former council species had adapted to the new system, learning that cooperation was more profitable than oppression. The Federation wasn't perfect. There were still disputes, still conflicts, still species that struggled to adapt, but it was better. Measurably, undeniably better. Trade had increased by 400%. Technology was advancing faster with open sharing. Wars had decreased by 70%. And most importantly, small species no longer lived in fear. Captain Choi Yuna, now an admiral herself, stood beside Park Minho. Do you ever regret it? The way we did it? Park Minho thought for a long moment. I regret that it was necessary. I wish the council had listened when we asked politely. But no, I don't regret our response. Sometimes the only language bullies understand is strength. And now? Now we make sure we never become what they were. We have power, but we use it responsibly. We have strength, but we share it. We have advanced technology, but we teach others freely. That's the difference between us and the old council. In a secure facility on Earth, Dr. Han Jiwoo worked on humanity's next generation of technology. Weapon systems that could reshape the fabric of space. Defensive shields that could protect entire planets. Medical technology that could extend lifespans by centuries. But unlike the council, this technology wouldn't be hoarded. When it was ready, it would be shared with everyone. Because that was the promise humanity had made. Not just to themselves, but to the galaxy. They had proven their strength. They had demanded respect. They had torn down a corrupt system and built something better in its place. And they had done it all because a council full of arrogant species had made one critical mistake. They had laughed at humanity. They had called humans weak, insignificant, unworthy of respect. The galaxy would never make that mistake again.